Hello, seventh graders. It is time to fill out the Rising Eighth Grade course selection form. This is really important that we do this correctly the first time because students can only fill out this form once. So I'm going to be going through this one question at a time. Do not move ahead. Okay, we are going to practice patience today and move through this one question at a time together. Students, you can only fill out this form once, so we want it to be correct. If you rush ahead, you could miss some really important directions, okay? So we're gonna stick together. I'm gonna be using this example course selection spreadsheet to talk about how to fill out the form, okay? So each of you has this spreadsheet. Hopefully you have most or all of your teacher recommendations. And you definitely need your top 8 elective choices. You will need to put in all 8 to complete the form, okay? Now remember, this is not the selection form. This is really like a planning document for you, okay? This, what you're filling out today, is the real form. It's the official course selection form, okay? All right, let's dive in. Teachers, please feel free to pause at any time. I might be kind of prompting you to pause a couple times, but feel free to pause if I'm going too quickly and students need a little time to catch up. The first question, student ID, okay? I assume that most students know that. If you don't, go ahead and ask your teacher for that. Next is student first name. Make sure that anytime you type your name that you capitalize the first letter, okay? And student last name. You know, it's important, most important that your student ID is correct, but it also helps if you put in the name that is in SIS, okay? So maybe you go by a nickname. If you can put in the name that is in the student information system, that'll help your counselor be able to input your courses. All right, so student ID, first name, last name. And you're not moving ahead, correct? So right now, all together, we're gonna push next. Okay, here's our core classes. We talked about core classes last week on Thursday, and you have been meeting with your teachers to talk about what you should take next year. So here we go. First, we're going to select one math course. And there's a few options for math that really depend on what you're taking this year. So let's go over to our spreadsheet. For this example student, they're going to find the math row. And you'll remember, oh, I met with Miss Stowe and she suggested Algebra 1 for me next year. Now, something you might want to do, we are only using this column, okay, for our form. So I'm actually, you might want to do this too. I'm going to go to fill color and highlight whatever color you want to make this column stand out. This is all we're going to be using for the form in the core class section. We're not going to be inputting our teacher names, and we're not going to be inputting the class setting recommendations. Just this part. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple seconds to either highlight that or just take note of that. Okay, so again, for math, Ms. Stowe suggested Algebra 1 for me next year, and I agree with that, so I'm going to push Algebra 1. Make sure no one should be selecting geometry honors unless you are in Algebra 1 this year, okay? And just remember with teacher recommendations, they are recommendations, not requirements. So if you have talked to your family and you want to take a class that's different from the recommendation, you are able to, but just remember that your teachers know your ability in their subject best. So I would really highly consider their recommendations. Okay, let's talk about English. The options are English 8 or English 8 honors. I'm going to go back to my form. I'm going to find the English row. Oops, sorry. And I'm going to remember that I met with Miss Palacios and she suggested English 8. So if I agree with that, I'm going to go back to the form and select English 8. Next, we have history. And the options next year are civics or civics honors. So I'm going to find the history row. And remember that I met with Mr. Weinschenker and he suggested civics 8 for me next year. So I'm going to go back here and select civics 8. All right, let's do one more, your science course. So the science course for next year is called Investigating Matter and Energy. And we have the regular class and the honors class. When I go back to my form, I'm going to find the science row, see that Miss Wolschlager and I talked, and she actually recommended me for honors. She thinks that that's something that I'm ready to do. And so assuming I agree with her, I'm going to select honors. Okay. Now listen, you might not have gotten every single teacher recommendation. Okay. I understand that that can happen. Don't worry, think about for yourself. We talked about what an honors class is and what it means. So you have the ability to make some decisions for yourself, thinking about your grades and your test scores and how hard you've worked in that subject and if it's interesting to you. And you can make a decision on your own about that. And when you meet with, you'll be meeting with Miss Carrie in about a month. And when you do that, if you want to make a change, you can. Okay, so don't stress, but you do need to make a choice today. All right, teachers, you may want to pause here, please, just to check and see if anybody has any questions about what they're selecting for their core classes. All right, when you're ready, you can push next. And now we are going to be inputting electives. All right, so you are going to have to put in a first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth choice, right? We talked about how it's important to have your top choices and then some backups. So make sure they are in order. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to your form and scroll down. And actually, before I move on to that, let me talk about this support class section really quick. You'll see that this student met with Miss Jaw and she recommended literacy 8. So the good news is you actually don't have to put that on the form. Miss Jaw is going to be providing her recommendations to your counselor, and your counselor is going to put you in that class for you. All right. So it's good to know, that's why it's here, but you don't need to worry about the support class section for this form. Okay. All right. So moving on to electives. This student has Spanish 1 as their first elective. So I'm going to go to the first choice and I'm going to click on the drop down and I'm going to find Spanish 1. All right. Then second choice, going to do the same thing. You'll see computer solutions is here. Okay, second choice. I'm going to scroll down until I find computer solutions. Third choice is yoga for wellness. So I'm going to push the bar, scroll down, and yoga for wellness is at the bottom. Okay. I'm going to do one more and then give you guys a chance to do yours. Okay. So my fourth choice is coding. Now it says here, you must take computer solutions first. So if you haven't taken, like if, let's say you're not in computer solutions this year, you need to make sure that computer solutions is listed above coding, which for this student it is, right? So that's okay. So my fourth choice is coding. Okay, right here. So that's what you're going to do. Go ahead and start putting your choices in. You're going to do your 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. I'm going to let you work while I fill this in. If you have any questions for your teachers about which classes, you know, you have a prerequisite, meaning you have to take another class first, you can ask them now. You also want to make sure that every single choice is a different class. Okay, so you cannot just put, you know, art foundations for 5 of the choices. Unfortunately, if you did do that, then you would likely be put in whatever class has the most seats open. So, you know, if you don't give us 8 choices, then we would be picking for you and you're going to go into the class that the least amount of people want, if that makes sense. So the point is, make sure that you have 8 choices on here and that they are all different. Teachers, I'm at a point where I'm about to push next on the form. So assuming your students needs a little more time, please pause this video now. Okay, pushing next. This is the last page of the form, okay? And it's just asking you to make a couple agreements. The first one, you can read with me as I read aloud. The selections you have made today are course requests. Therefore, you are not guaranteed a seat in the class you have chosen. Students will be placed in classes based on individual academic needs, availability of classes, and the number of open seats in each class. This pretty much means that you are making course requests today. Just because you request a course does not mean that you will definitely be placed in it, okay? So if you understand that, you need to click I understand. Second one, when you submit this form, a copy of your course request will be emailed to your school email account. You must share the copy of your course request with your parent or guardian. Okay, so if you see here, it says a copy of your responses will be emailed to you, right? So once you submit, you're going to get a copy of what you chose, which will be a great thing for you to have with you when you get your schedule next year to kind of look back, because it's easy to forget, you know, what you chose. And then if there's an issue, you can bring that email to your counselor. We'll also be mailing your choices home to your parent, but this is another option to be able to talk to them about it. So assuming you agree, you're going to click I agree, and then you are done. Please remember that when you push submit, that's it. That is your one time that you get to fill out this form. All right. You will be meeting with Miss Carey in like April and May, one-on-one during PE classes, in order to make any changes or talk about, you know, the courses that you selected. Okay. So if you're ready, you may push submit. Thank you all for being patient, and congratulations on choosing your classes for next year.